she's a little apprehensive to go to Earth, and he's like going to be her
He's like a
spirit guide.
spiritual guide. Right, right,
Yep.
right, right.
And so just let love guide your way back home.
That's right. I added the sky, the moon, the sunset down below, and
Cool.
I have a lot of fun with that. You know, it's my passion, which started when I was about 4 years old, based on an
Beautiful.
experience looking at art. Yeah.
And and you said that one of the special things you told me in December, which you've probably told me many times, but I heard it in a new way that it was really beautiful that um my soul was kind of I was coming to earth, and I don't know if my mom was pregnant. But that's about when you had the inspiration to do sacred art. And so you kind of connected it to my soul in a way. Something like that.
Yes, because it came so powerfully and so like out of nowhere. I'll tell you the moment again. You were 3 months before you were going to be born. So that takes us to December 1979. And I'm up late at night. Basil is sleeping. You and your mom are sleeping. And I'm up in the living room. And I take out my little box of these holy cards. Like I say, I've been collecting sacred art, religious images, especially these Italian holy cards since I was 5 years old. So I had a really sweet collection. And actually, what I found is if I shuffle them like a deck of cards and looking at them, these images would just whirl by really fast, and they would get implanted in my brain, and it would help my dreams. I discovered that very powerfully. But
That's
anyway,
something that we should be doing then before bed.
exactly, it really is powerful because this is how they took that information called
Mhm.
subliminal images, and
Mhm.
they decided to incorporate it in films and advertising. So when you go to the theater, you're going to buy more Coca-Cola because you couldn't see the Coke ad there because they flashed it in 5 frames, but you're going to buy more Coke. So you don't have to consciously look at something in order for it to imprint on your mind. And I'll back up a few steps where I was there. Um, I'm looking at the holy cards, and the thought, if I love these so much, if I find sweetness and comfort in looking at these, there must be hundreds or thousands of souls that would just experience the same as I do. So the second that thought opened up my mind, suddenly a very powerful, I could feel a very powerful presence. And I mean, it's unmistakable. It's kept me animated on this process of sharing art since then, 45 years ago. So that's how powerful it was. And, you know, I've had powerful experiences like this a few times in my life, but I felt that this was the presence of Mother Mary herself, because she's been a part of my whole spiritual evolution since I was a kid. I've been consciously aware of it since I was a child. And then I hear what I call an impression. Some people would say a voice, you know, which is never an audible voice. It's a thought projection, which is very equal to a voice because you're hearing some words or an impression. And those words were, I would like you to take these and put them into the marketplaces of the world. I'd like you to do something creative with those and put them into the world, the marketplace. So I'm thinking, I mean, at that point, I'm in just awe and wonderstruck. I'm just sitting there like blissfully stunned because of the love and the light and the powerful presence. it's like being caught up into the higher realm or your higher self. And I don't think people have so many of those experiences, but when you do, the impressions are so powerful, uh, they can last a lifetime. Just like that experience will certainly last a lifetime. It's 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 a long time now. So I come back down and I'm thinking, okay, I'll figure out something how to get these into the marketplaces. If you want to continue on a couple details of the story, how it unfolded, I will now, or we could talk later.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so some weeks go by or some days go by and I'm right on top of it. I'm like, and what the heck am I going to make with these? I mean, I didn't know. I thought, okay, I'm going to make some little pins that someone could wear of a little saint or a Madonna and child and or an angel. And so I laminated an image onto some cardboard. I decoupaged it on there. I put a pin on the back and I made a collection of them with a cute little display. And I brought them to the University District in Seattle and took it to some stores. I said, what about trying these out? Just consignment. You don't have to buy them. Let's just see how they move. I created a really sweet little box for them. And maybe a couple sold, but when I went back to talk to the owners, it didn't seem like I was on quite the right track. Again, this is 1979, and another flash came into my mind. What about putting a magnet on there? There were no magnets on the market in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
Zero, no picture magnets of any kind ever to be seen on the market that I was aware of. And indeed, there probably wasn't. There were plastic fruits. Someone had come up with 3D plastic fruits and plastic alphabets to teach little children on the refrigerator how to mess with the alphabet, but no image. So I thought, let me redo this. So I think I put a magnet on the back of those. At the same time, I'm thinking, how else can I creatively make something with these that's really unusual and beautiful? So I started taking very small ceramic tiles, and you've probably seen some samples of those. Very small.
I remember the tiles.
Cobalt blue tiles that I could buy.
You still have some of those?
I'm sure I do a few.
I
And
hope so.
I mean, I see some of my friends that have them still now for
Cute.
so many years. So
Yeah.
I was excited. This was going to be an unusual gift, much more creative and substantial. And I made a number of those and I took them back out to the University District, which is a hip district in Seattle. It's a college area where the college is and beautiful stores up and down the avenue of all kinds. And I took them back to a few stores. And, these were religious images and none of those stores were religious. So they thought, religious items, really? I don't know. I said, let's just check it out. They put them in their stores, and the word is hotcakes. They were hotcakes. Hotcakes. It was like flying out of the stores.
Nice.
Man, that was so refreshing and beautiful. I had a smoke shop that sold nothing but tobacco and other paraphernalia there on the avenue. He had my whole display in the window. You could see him as you walk by the avenue.
That's awesome.
I made some very cool displays for those. So that's how it started. They literally, every place I put them, they were like winners. So the market was ripe. People were open, even though they had never had sold a religious looking thing ever before. There was like, yep, you're right, buddy. You got something there. So already with the feeling it's my dharma or it's part of my mission to get religious art out there at that point. Um, I continued to work part-time after work on that process for a number of years and came up with some bigger tiles with bigger images. I had them in the finest jewelry store there on University Avenue, trying to remember their name. They had them in their windows. I
Nice.
eventually did some images like for Valentine's Day and branched out like that. But, and now you can see I do wall art.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so tell me about the Jesus.
Larger images. Yeah. So, yeah, that's very close to my heart. It's new images of Christ because actually the whole thing started when I was 4 years old. This is how my passion for religious art started. My father was a precious, very fun loving and sweet and religious devotional person. So every morning, even though he had 6 kids, he'd get up before everyone else, go in the living room, kneel down and pray.
I've never heard that story about
Oh my
Saint.
God. Yeah. So my dad, was very much involved in service. I helped him deliver food to people's homes. He belonged to an organization that helped the poor, a couple organizations actually. So, um, but that's how he would start his day. He felt it was really important to pray for the family. And so he would be up before everyone else. I walked in there when he was there one morning, very quietly, because I used to like to get up early too and sing before everybody else would get up. So I walked in there one day, and above our couch we have an image of Jesus. It was a very popular image of Jesus, just the head of Christ. I don't have it handy, but so I had seen it before 100 times. It was right above our couch. But when I walked in there quietly when my dad was in prayer, I looked up at that image of Jesus. And this experience wasn't as powerful as the one I just described to you, but I'm 4, and I suddenly, as I describe it, I say the veils between the worlds grew thin. In other words, I felt psychically, subtly, soulfully elevated a little bit. And I took note. I thought, wow, okay, I'm sitting here looking at this image, and suddenly I'm feeling a powerful inspiration, an uplift of consciousness. And again, that hit me so powerfully in that moment that I realized that religious art has a powerful effect on the soul. Here's what
Like a
Carl,
portal.
here's what Carl Jung says about that.
Mhm.
One of my favorite quotes, Carl Jung, sacred art, religious art, is a mirror for humanity, which allows the soul, encourages the soul to emerge and develop. Sacred art is a mirror for humanity of the higher self, the soul itself. So he was totally into sacred art of all faiths. So that's how it begun. Now you were asking me about the print of unusual Jesus images. So that's a very in-depth thing that's unfolded more and more over the years for me. But so at 18 years old, I had a very powerful awakening. And shortly after that, I had the intuition that the people on this planet from the beginning of time always invoke the creator to guide them. From the beginning of time, from the earliest mankind, womankind. Lord, oh God, oh creator, guide us. Whether they were talking to the beautiful spirit of nature or what they perceived as the original creator of the original manifestation, earth. Please guide us, So they had the intuition to pray and to ask for wisdom. So this all came in a real quick flash that people have invoked God from the beginning of time, and God has gifted them with some wisdom according to their ability to receive it. Okay. So with that came the realization that God has spoken truth to all people of all cultures from the beginning, everywhere on the planet, which really opened up my mind to having some humble respect for all faiths. Okay. So,
Absolutely. But
so
so we don't even need to get into the fact that Jesus likely meditated in India
well, that's an interesting story that
in his well, what,
in his lost years,
20s and then early 30s, right? Because it doesn't even talk about him in the Bible in those years.
18 whole years, and here you're talking about one of the most important persons who have been recorded in history, and the lead up to his appearance for 1,000 or 2,000 years, the coming of the Messiah. Then he's recognized, the recordings of his life from the very beginning of the Annunciation to Mary, that God has chosen you to be the mother of God. What do you say? And she said, yes. So at 18, we hear that Mary and Jesus took him to the temple for a great celebration of Passover. And they each thought that he was with the other parent on the way home. And they discovered when they caught up with each other, no, he's not. So they went back to, they looked for him for many days. I mean, Mary's heart must have been just wrung to the core. And it's just like, what did we do? We lost him. They've been trying to kill him since he was a baby. We don't know if we'll ever see him again. What happened? So their heart and psyches were just wrenched, feeling terrible about how that could happen, where they left without him and we don't know where he is. They go back to the temple eventually, and there he is, 12 years old, astounding the elders of the temple with his wisdom. And then it says, and then Jesus went back with Mary and Joseph back home and grew in wisdom
And stature.
and stature. So that's the last we hear. That's the last we hear. 18 years go by and suddenly Jesus is back. They say Jesus, appeared on the scene again at 30 years old. And he's coming to get baptized of John the Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
And
he traveled the world in that time.
Legends all over the world talk
Mm-hmm.
about Jesus coming to talk to them, but especially in India, we still have this. In Tibet, there was a recorded in their old language, the early Buddhist tongue called Pali, that Saint Isa, another name for Jesus, another way of saying Jesus, has come here. And they talked about him going back to Jerusalem and his own people putting him to death. So, but there are legends all over India that have survived 2,000 years of him coming here and there. One instance sounds so much like Jesus. He was among the elders of wisdom traditions in India, and they have a caste system there, and you don't talk to the lower class. And Jesus was there sharing wisdom with the lowest class. And the priests were very upset with him. And who knows what they were wanting to do with him, but he got away. So that sounds like Jesus going right down to the poor people, the outcast, and sharing the wisdom and the good news. So, but I myself have a Tibetan teacher who, the more I talk to him, the more is revealed. He was shown a book in India that talked about Jesus and also some of the things that Jesus actually wrote down. Now that's a new one. I don't think hardly anyone has ever heard that story. And yet I totally trust this old Lama who taught Tibetan history for 40 years in India and was the best friend of the Dalai Lama since they were 5 years old. And this Lama that I'm talking about lived in the palace with the Dalai Lama, growing up since 5, and left when the Chinese invasion happened. He tells me he actually read that book, very old, written on like papyrus, like the skin of trees that they had.
Wow.
And he, he
Cool.
he thinks very highly of Jesus. He says the Tibetans talk about Jesus coming there and teaching them all kinds of things. He even said, including some things to do with agriculture. So that was one of my first conversations with him 20 years ago. But the more I talked to him about it, the more precious I feel of gaining some wisdom firsthand from a Tibetan scholar about this subject. So,
Hmm. So
um, yeah,
you're,
so this image of Jesus, that's a very Tibetan one. So
I
this
love
is,
it. It's very intricate in the details.
yeah, I may alter the face on that one to make it a little more Middle Eastern. But that
Mhm.
was one of my first Tibetan images of Christ. And of course, you can see his heart there, which is another whole story and another tradition. And
Sacred Heart. It's beautiful.
that heart is actually made out of a rose. If you could look closely, you'll see rose petals.